1% hoarding massive amounts of wealth while I'm busting my ass to buy groceries feels like a fever dream. And it reminds me of another time in history where the wealthy tried to play in our face. But we were bolder then, so we just rounded up the rich people and chopped off their heads. Welcome to the story of Marie Antoinette. And this is the fourth part, the grand finale of the Headless Queen. And where we left off, Marie Antoinette had just suffered a very personal loss at the death of her son. At the time, France is in a lot of political unrest with a lot of economic disparity. So while the royal family is grieving the loss of their son, French people are out trying to start a republic. And though the French royal family is trying to keep this revolution pretty moderate and away from the radicals, it's not really working out that way. And when the Republic people start to hold rallies without the input of the monarchy gets scared. And so Marie Antoinette and the French royal family bring in military forces to protect them should shit start popping off in Paris. But the common people see this increase in military presence as a direct threat to them and their fight for change. Tensions are sky high, and all of this is leading to some wild-ass rebellions. They're even busting open the prisons. They are taking France's long-standing institutions down. Ready or not, royal family, here they come. The King of France, Louis XVI, gets awoken in the middle of the night, and they're like, hey man, the purge is going on outside. And he's like, girl, what do you mean? They're revolting? And they're like, no babe, this is a revolution. And it's clear to anyone with eyes that shit is about to get crazy. So all the rich people in France are just getting the fuck out of Dodge. Which is what Marie Antoinette and her kids should have done and just left her husband to go die on that hill alone. But despite her better judgment, when King Louis XVI said he was not leaving France, Marie stood by her man, trying to put their heads together to work out a system politically that would bring peace into the nation. But unfortunately, times are just too tough and they are out of chances. And the clear wealth disparity of children dying in the streets of Paris to wealthy businessmen, palace of Versailles, was just not gonna fly anymore. And Marie Antoinette's in her bedchambers, probably huffing paint or something, and all of a sudden the walls are shaking and an angry mob is coming towards her. So the queen hops, skips, and jumps her little ass through a secret door and gets away from the angry mob. And then all the French people come in and they're like, sacre bleu! And they start just like trashing the shit out of all Marie's stuff because they're mad she's not there and they can't just kill her. This little ambush would be the last straw for the king and queen, however, and they decide to pack up their shit and go into Paris to a much safer home. And like a typical man, King Louis just shits the bed at this point. He just checks out of his job completely and does not give a fuck about fixing this situation. And Marie is doing absolutely everything she can to try to retain any political power while reaching a middle ground with people that want their heads. And she does seem to be genuinely trying to fix it, but she is a bit of a double agent, secret agent Cody Banks. Because Marie's kissing ass, she's being buddy-buddy with all these French Republican government guys, while she's also writing back to the Austrian royal family, giving them all the tea on what's happening in France. She is not succeeding though, and the revolution would go on to become more radical and separate itself farther and farther from the monarchy. And after a powerful ally she had in the revolutionary movement dies, Marie realizes that this is going in a very dangerous direction. And so in 1791, a late night in the middle of June, they took off to the Austrian border with Marie Antoinette's longtime Swedish advisor / possible secret boyfriend. And they're on their merry way, trotting through the French countryside. On the journey, they do part ways with the Swedish advisor on their way to the Austrian border. But this is where they fuck up, because they have no idea how to blend in with common folks. They've never lived a common day in their fucking lives, so they're going through the French countryside with shit that's way too nice to be out there. They look suspicious as hell, and when King Louis steps out of the carriage for a minute, it just takes one guy delivering letters to be like, hey, isn't that the guy from the coins? And then the king and queen are surrounded. All of their things are stripped and searched, and they are marched off back to Paris and officially prisoners. With most people in France subscribing to the idea that they were headed to Austria in order to get military aid to help overthrow the French Revolution. So it did not take long for France to declare war on Austria, and the revolution hits its all-time high with the abolishment of the monarchy and a Paris-wide sweep taking out all of the royalists and people who were against the revolution. And the royal family, now being stripped of their titles, is moved to a high-security prison. And they're all together having one of the most fucked up family vacations revolutions in history until King Louis is put on trial for treason and they chop his head off. And the children were then removed from Marie Antoinette's care. And these little jail kids are actually kind of treated like shit because they're seen as political threats to the revolution, even though they're like 7 years old, so. And at this point, it's just the son and the daughter left. The son would actually die in confinement, and the daughter would make it to adulthood, and she eventually makes it to Austria and marries her cousin. But back to Marie, who was moved into some shitty little cell and then put on trial herself. And this trial is a complete setup. They said that she was conspiring with Austria against France, and that she was a morally corrupt woman who was not above doing weird stuff with her children, and some other boring legal stuff. All of which they had zero proof of her doing. I mean, did she spy on them and tell Austria what they were doing? Yes. Did they know that? No. But since Marie was 14 years old and stepped on French soil for the first time, her little ass has been the subject of every salacious French headline. So people are really quick to believe whatever about her. So this dumbass trial goes on, and the judge finds her guilty, and Marie's like, alright, tight. I actually would rather fucking die than hang out with you lames anyway. And in October 1793, Marie is set to be executed, with her pretty little head getting chopped right off. So she's in her all-white fit, and she's sitting in her carriage. They're driving her through the city. Everyone's kind of gawking at her while she's just sitting there, stoic and calm. And then, as the story goes, she climbs to the execution block. She accidentally steps on the executioner's toes. She says, "My bad, B." She kneels down, and they drop the blade. The queen's head is promptly removed from her body, and the crowd cheers as they hold it up in victory. And that's the story of Marie Antoinette. What do you think? Do you think she deserved all that? I think it makes a hell of a cautionary tale, and if any of you are starting a revolution, call me.